Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody, from wherever you're dialing in from. Welcome to Wysdom's webinar, Accelerating Intent Discovery with AI. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping as we bring everybody on board, let you know a little bit about how we'll interact with you and do some introductions. So, Jay, if you can just pop to the next slide here. So good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Trotter. I say good morning. I'm based on the west coast of Canada. I know some of you are calling in from Europe, where it's the end of your workday, and we thank you very much for that. I'm the Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing for Wysdom AI. I'm joined by Jay Athia, who's our Senior Director of Customer Success. Jay's going to do most of the heavy lifting today and really, dig into our operations center and show you some concrete examples of things you can do on intents. So we'll introduce the operations center, and most of today is going to be a demo with Jay showing you exactly how our customers use this tool to drill down. So that's us. Jay, if you want to go to the next one. So what you'll find, we try and make this as interactive as possible. In the control panel, you'll see you can go in there and put a question in at any point, hit send, and it'll go to our moderators. We will have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to keep them to the end if you want to. We actually find it works better if you ask a question as Jay's going through something. We have moderators who will look and interrupt Jay and say, hey, Jay, can you drill down a little bit bigger or deeper here? Or, this is a question about something you just showed. It's better to do that in the moment, so please feel free to do that. We think that leads to a better webinar. So type your questions in as we go through. We will do our best to answer them on the fly. If not, we will have a question and answer session at the end, but I think many of you have been to these webinars. Sometimes time can get a little bit tight near the end. So if you really have a question that relates to something Jay is showing you in Operations Center, please ask it at the time. Next one, Jay. So we usually like to start these with a poll question. And so this is just, where are you, on your journey with chatbot? So how long have you had your chatbot? So we'll pop up the poll, and if each of you can sort of answer, are you in the planning stages? Are you just launching? Did you launch within the last year, or have you been launched a year or so plus? So if you can pop your answers in there, that's great. It's informational for us, and it lets us know kind of where our audience is on the journey. It also helps Jay a little bit. He can perhaps tailor a little bit of content as he goes through, depending on where the majority of our attendees are, or certainly speak to how the tool is useful in just different phases depending on the maturity of where you are. So we'll just give a few minutes on that.
It looks like most are in market for a little while or longer than a year.
Fantastic. Okay, that's what we love to see. All right, so I will do, we don't just want this to be a Wysdom sales pitch at all, but I'll do a little bit about sort of who we are, so you understand. So Wysdom, our tagline is we make chatbots smarter, and there's two pieces to our business. I would say upfront, what we are not is we are not a chatbot platform. So we integrate with every major chatbot platform out there, and so we take the information from your chatbot platform, from live chat, from your live agents, and we serve that up through our chatbot analytics software. And that's what Jay's going to show you today, our Operations Center suite, which really provides insight into how your bot is performing, where you can improve, drill down, and really understand what's working and what isn't working. We do have a professional services side to our business, so if any of you need assistance in designing, building, or operating a chatbot, we've got deep domain experience in that as well. Today, we're going to talk very specifically about the analytics software package that we provide. So where we fit is there's two ways we look at it. The vast majority of the market spends their time on sort of pre-launch and launch. So what platform do you build on? How do you build the journeys? How do you connect into all your various back office systems? And that's super important, and that's what we do in the consulting side of our business. but really where the focus of our business on and what we're going to talk about today is post-launch. So once you've got a bot up and running, and whether that's you just launched it or it was several years ago, it's how do you take this rich set of data that you have, centralize it so that you can analyze it, really drill down and get some insights that allow you to refine the bot performance, understand what's working and what's not working, and quite importantly, report internally within your organization as to what the ROI is on your investment in your virtual agent, and also where you should invest further. So if you look at areas where you know that can be improved, using data to say, here is the ROI of that investment. And so we can do that with our operations center. And very quickly, so this Jay's going to get in and show you the full demo, but this is really what we do. We centralize everything in one place. You can get a snapshot, and you'll see on the graphic there's a thing called BES and BAS, which is bot experience score and bot automation score. And those are metrics that we report on, and Jay will go a little bit into what those mean as we go through, but you can get a quick snapshot of how your bot is performing, figure out where you're struggling, and then really drill down, go into actual conversations, sort them and filter them so that you can very easily go to the ones that provide you with meaningful data. And I think one of the most important things is show your progress as you go through and improve. How, as you make changes to your bot, how is that experience score improving? So think of bot experience score being a little bit like CSAT. How is your customer experience? How is that, as you make these improvements, how is that improving? So Jay's going to show you some very specific things today, but our operations center, we'd love to show you everything that it does. And at the end of this, we'll talk a little bit about if anybody wants to go deeper on some of the wider things within our operations center. Jay's got some very specific use case things he's going to show you today. And Jay, I'll turn over to you, and you can maybe set up for everybody what you're going to show them before we get into operations center.
Yeah, thanks, David. You teed me up quite well here, but I want to take you back a few years to start. When I started at Wysdom about 5 years ago, my role was to help build and manage bots for our customers. And this was this very typical scenario. So we'd sign someone up, fairly large organization, first foray into conversational AI. So they'd start with, a fairly simple chatbot, FAQ based. Many of you already have, bots running for some time, so maybe you follow the same approach. But FAQ based, simple exchange of question and answer, and then you start proving the value of it. You start showing, hey, the bot's working, seems to be understanding well. Here are the types of topics it's handling. And then it gets a bit more interest. So there, executives or senior leadership are saying, hey, looks good. We're starting to see this move our numbers. Let's do more. And so we do the same. We'd build out more. So we maybe add a new channel, something like mobile messaging. You add voice. Maybe you add advanced use cases, something where actually accomplish something in the bot, not just FAQs. And then, but the team stays the same. So you have, a couple people, and now you have 4x the number of bots, 3x or 4x the volume. A lot more detailed questions. It's no longer, hey, how's the bot doing? It's now, what are you doing well? What do we start tweaking? What other use cases do we start adding? What our customers feel about it? And your sort of approach of relying on spreadsheets or customer feedback in terms of stars or thumbs up, thumbs down, it rapidly becomes inefficient. It's the same number of people, like we always face, more work, same people, but it just becomes ineffective. And then so at Wysdom, once we started seeing the number of bots that we started managing multiply, we knew we needed a better way. And it's sort of the classic story of entrepreneurship. We did something, we identified a problem, there had to be a better way. So we created Operations Center, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's not just slides here on the webinar, but that's where it came from. That's sort of the genesis of it, that, relying on spreadsheets, SQL queries, an analytics team to give us things that might take weeks or months to approach, come to us, and then not having enough information there at our fingertips to actually improve the bots. Is the reason we created Operations Center. And now we're finding our customers who don't use us to manage bots have their own teams, maybe dozens, if not more people at some of the larger organizations like I'm seeing here on the line, probably have dozens of people running their bot program, from architects to designers to natural language understanding experts. And so they've got the people, but they don't have the tool to augment it. So that's what this is. And today specifically, we're going to focus in on one area, which is intent discovery. And what this refers to, all of you will probably know, given the names I'm looking at, this is where your bot didn't understand what users were asking about, and we need to accelerate a way to find what those are. And in my experience, the quicker you can close those gaps, the quicker your bot will show additional value to your users, whether they're your customers or whether they're your employees. So I'll go through 3 different scenarios here, and I'll pop over to the tool in a second to walk through these. But I thought I'd introduce them so it's a little bit easier to follow rather than sort of a jarring transition over to a tool. But we'll start with this problem that I faced in my teams, which is reviewing messages without a topic. So these are where a user would send something, the bot would say, hey, I'm having trouble, can you rephrase, can you try again? And the user would often rephrase, and you know, if your bot's strong in terms of NLU, or the user's rephrased drastically enough that it looks different, the bot may understand it. But what happens is, you know, a customer like mine a few years ago may have 500,000 chats a month, you know, maybe 10 million messages over the course of a couple of months. And even at 95% natural language understanding, we're still talking about tens of thousands of messages being generated every week that weren't matched by the bot. And what we get is this giant list of each of these messages, a lot of them garbage, a lot of them useful. And someone will sit down and try to sort, try to group, try to count, and it's incredibly inefficient. And so it'd be better to just aggregate and prioritize. And I'll show you how we do that. On the second, another way to find intents or intents that are new is looking at how your existing intents are being handled. So in Operations Center, we'll help you flag where, excuse me, where there's problematic topics, where the experience isn't ideal, where the automation isn't great, and actually helping you by looking at some of the summaries of conversations that are happening. And finally, I'll show you another way, which is to dive deep. So once you find a problem area, it's not as simple as sort of saying, okay, here's my metric, here's where I'll focus. It's allowing you getting you right down to the most granular piece of information available, and allowing and using that to help figure out where the bot and where you could be able to add new intents to improve the bot performance. So I'll stop there. Everyone hates slides. I'm going to pop over to our tool. And you should see that. Of course, they kicked me out, so I'll sign back in. So what you'll see when I log in is Operations Center. This is our demo environment, so nothing's real. It's all sort of made up data. But of course, there's enough here that'll illustrate what we're talking about. When you log in, you're sort of greeted with this summary page. We call it Experience and Automation Summary. David, before he handed the mic over to me, explained very briefly what experience and automation mean to us and why we created these standard metrics. And that's what you start with. It sort of is the place to answer the question of how my bot's doing, right? And you know, how are my customers liking it, and is it automating enough? So on the left, we have this dial called experience. On the right is automation. These are automatically generated. So how Operations Center works is all of the conversation data between your bots, your customers, and your agents, all of that is loaded into Operations Center. We detect the contact reasons or the topics, and then calculate metrics across each of these topics. We also pull in additional data around the bot setup itself. So what sort of intents and utterances you have trained, what responses you have, what flows, conversational flows you may have set up, entities, all of that sort of under the hood is all loaded into Operations Center and calculated and analyzed to say how the bot's doing or where there are areas to improve. So what we've calculated here is the overall experience score of 85 and the overall automation score of 19. The experience score looks at not just surveys, because we know very few people actually fill out a survey in a bot, and it tends to be negative feedback. So it looks at the entire conversation. It assesses how did it go? Did a user have to repeat themselves several times to get to an answer? Do they express any sort of negative sentiment or negative tone towards the conversation with the bot? Did they leave feedback that is, of course, incorporated into here? Did they receive false positives that didn't look like the right? So there's 6 or 7 different signals here, and it's automatically calculated. Again, it's not relying on a survey. Automation, on the other hand, is a tougher measure of containment. So here we're looking at, did the user abandon the conversation? Did they get a response that was actually meaningful? Did they seek an agent multiple times? So it's looking for, again, a stricter measure of containment. It's what we call automation or bot automation score. I'm going to pop over here. So just introducing the tool specifically and what you're seeing, giving a little speed run, but then I'll get into some of the scenarios to help you find new intents. This is probably the most popular page within Operations Center. Every single one of my customers, they've asked us to switch their default to here because they want to know exactly right into the weeds of what's going on. So to back up a little bit, David had mentioned we're platform agnostic. So we're not here as a bot platform, especially for those that came in a few minutes ago. Wysdom is not a bot platform. We connect to the platforms you already have. And we've got partnerships with many of them, like a Google, like Salesforce, IBM Watson. You may be using some open source ones like Araza. Frankly, it doesn't matter to us. You could use any live chat platform as well, live person, Bold Chat, Genesis, etc. All of that gets pulled in. We'll stitch it together if you don't have the data combined. So we might pull in from your live person and then your dialogue flow, let's say if that's the setup you have. Bring all that information together and then determine these contact reasons and then all of the metrics associated with those contact reasons. So I'll walk through one example and then I'll hop over to one of the scenarios I have with finding new intents. So all of your date range filters up here, your brand, if you have several lines of business, maybe you have a sub-brand or subsidiary you may be interested in looking at separately. Multiple channels, this supports mobile messaging, web messaging, voice, if you've got any voice, the conversational IVR. Even if you don't have conversational IVR, we'll pull in your voice and analyze your agent conversations. So in this case, this entirely made up data is 3 different channels, Apple, SMS, and web chat, and then many, many more filters. A lot more than we'll probably walk through today, but everything from looking at bot conversations only to bot and agent to specific cues or skills within your agent contact center platform, different languages, devices, you name it. If it's available as part of your bot setup, we'll pull it in and we'll be able to pull it up as a filter for you. Okay, so let's follow one of these. Let's look at order status. So what this is showing is out of all of the conversations that occurred, bot to customer and then agent to customer, we've detected about 25,500 conversations that occurred where the topic was order status. So the primary thing the customer said. And why we're looking at the agent is all of you've got bots in market for a little while. You see it. I mean, as a customer, you probably do it as well. You hit a bot or you hit the IVR conversational kind of tree where you pick what you want to speak to an agent about, and you hit 0 or you just say, agent, I know you're a bot, I don't want to deal with you. The bot handles with you an agent, and then your life story comes out. If you're only looking at the bot, you got no insight. You have no idea what's going on. They just hit 0 or they said, give me an agent. When you look at the agent side, you see the actual problem. And we'll look at that. We'll look at the agent side and say, okay, they actually told the agents about an order status and they told the bot nothing. So this gives you some added detail. I'm going to scroll right here, and forgive me if it's a bit choppy through the stream. So bot experience score, like I talked about, in this case 75. Your bot automation score for this topic 9. And just if you're like me, you're already using scrolling up and down the column here. Immediately your eyes are started thinking, or your mind started running and saying, hey, why is order status performing so much worse than product information? Or why is delayed order virtually no automation? What's going on? And that's the point of this view. It helps you deconstruct the overall automation score, which was 19 on the previous screen, and you see, oh, okay, well this one's not doing any of the heavy lifting. It's letting my customers down. Let's go figure out what's going on. If I scroll right, you get an agent experience score, which is a measure of the live agent portion, containment, etc. There's a lot here. You can see I've only scrolled maybe a third of the way through. But today, I'm going to pivot to why we're all here, which is intent discovery and figuring out new intents. But I wanted to give you that sort of overview of the tool to start. So this section here in conversation analytics is really around the topics. So looking at those transcripts, what is the customer asking about, and then calculating metrics. Virtual agent analytics is a little bit of a different view. It's more around how did my bot handle? How is it configured, and how did it handle what was going on? So it takes in more of that metadata and your corpus data from your bot, your actual AI model. your intent organization, your conversational flows, the way you're setting up entities. It measures your NLU, your bot repetition rate, things like that, rather than that topic view. So if I'm looking here at unclassified messages, let's set up that problem again. So the problem was, I've got a bot, 500,000 chats a month, turns into maybe 5 million messages coming in a month. And even at 5% not understood, it's a very large number of not understood messages. Typically, and in my experience, you get a giant spreadsheet. You may ask your analytics team to query. You might go through and read transcripts and try to find where the bot misunderstood. Instead, what the Operations Center does for you is take all of those not understood messages, applies a topic model to it. So there's some intelligence here. It's not just a keyword match. It applies a topic model to it and assists you to prioritize and identify, how often is something happening and where should I focus my efforts to add in new intents. So I'll walk you through one here, which is the suggested category. So in the suggested category, this is, again, it's identified overall at the top level, product, order, appliance. So when I click in, I'll find more examples or more detailed versions of that overall topic. So again, all the unclassified messages have come through. About 15% of them have to do with orders. I get a breakout, and these are all automatic. I want to make sure you all understand that. The topic model thinks, almost half of the order related unclassified messages are related to order status. So 42% here. And then you get all of the actual messages. So think about what we did. We took potentially tens of thousands of messages not understood, grouped them and said, you know what, order seems to be the second most, or product is the most. And within it, I get this breakout that tells me here are the sort of the subtopics. So you can see we're sort of getting to that level where we're talking about intents. It's not quite an intent yet, but we're at a point where you can start thinking about, hey, do I have these intents already? Do I need to create new ones? And so on and so forth. And the tool helps you do that. So I'm going to pick one here that's a little bit more interesting, but with product. So you can see the ones here with product. And if you remember the first screen, we had product information as being the most contacted about reason. So some of these are already covered. So find product, it's loosely related. The stock, of course, is related to inventory or help, which is product information, but difference. So if I'm a bot owner, I'm kind of going through this list and saying, I don't remember an intent to handle where users are asking about the differences between items. And that's where I can use Operations Center to help me validate that assumption. So I'll pick this one here, which is, I want to know the difference between the hammer drill and the impact driver. Where can I find that? That's the actual user question that the bot didn't understand. I've got two little icons here. I know very hard to read in the screen, but there's new intent or existing intent. If I click existing intent, the intelligence is really cool. So there's my message. It gives me a suggested intent. So the OC is saying, or Operations Center saying, I think this is the one. I think you have an intent that's retail user ask product info. And it gives me a confidence for 12%. Terribly low. Like it's obviously not very confident in. And if I'm looking at this intent, it's not really it. I want something that's around differences or comparing. So what I'm going to do is, instead of that, I'm going to go back and say, you know what, I need a new intent. And what it does is it drops me down and puts me in this action. So I'm now workflow, right? I've taken my full list of unclassified messages, identified topics and subtopics, use the tool to give me intelligence to say, do I have an intent already that might match or not? Identify as a new one, and then it's now categorized here. I won't go through the other examples, but if I export this, it'll give me a nice summary in a spreadsheet, which I then import into my bot platform. So it could be Rasa, it could be Dialogflow, again, Power Virtual Agents from Microsoft. But it's given me everything that I've done here. So it's already identified that, this is the topic of difference. Here's the actual user message. I could copy and paste right into the platform if I want, or I might tweak it a little bit. I've identified it's a new intent, and of course it's new, so there's no assigned intent. If I had an E and hit save, if I export, what I just did was say, yeah, this looks like an existing intent. Here's my assigned one. So I've got that intelligence done. So that's a really neat way of, and think about the time you're saving, right? Instead of going through tens of thousands of these, you're now going through a few, prioritizing your list, and actually getting Operations Center to suggest the intent that's likely the same one. So that's one way. I know I showed two examples within that sort of one case, but it's a case of identifying the subtopic. Was it a new intent or was it an existing intent? I'm going to go back into here because this is another place that I could help figure out whether I need a new intent or not. Let's go back into contact reasons. So if you remember that slide, that's kind of the two other steps. So can I use automation and experience metrics to find where I need new intent? And where can I look at really granular data to really hone in on exact user questions or other intents I may need to add to my bot? So in this case, I'm going to use place, this one right here, place online order issue. And the reason I'm doing it, I'll scroll over right. So I have my high level metrics here. So again, bot experience score, looking at the experience the customer had with the bot automation score, how well it resolved that query. And then my agent experience score, it's how well the agent does to handle that. If I'm looking at place online order issue, it's the 10th most. My bot experience score looks about average, right? If I scroll up and down, it sort of smacks right in the middle. But my automation score is terrible, right? It's the second lowest. It's one, if I'm a bot, if I run this bot, I sort of know that this is one I've got handling for. But it's doing so poorly. And then my agent experience score is just about the bot experience score. So the decision I'd make here is, and the way I'd use these three metrics are, if my bot experience score is substantially lower than my agent experience score, I might decide to auto route it. It might be a topic like damaged order that my bot simply won't be able to handle. No matter how much intelligence I put into it, I might have next generation models, all of that. It's just not something that the customer is going to be satisfied with. I'm probably better off just handing it out over. But with this one, it's even. So I probably want to spend a bit more time here and automating it. So I'll click in. So when I click in, I didn't show you this before. I held back it intentionally to kind of bring it to the forefront here. But I've got that topic again, place online order issue. So the user is having issues placing online orders, all of my metrics, and I can look into the trends. But I'll take you here. These are all tabs to messages. These are all the user messages that kind of map to that topic. So for example, these are all these are all clickable. This one says can't order a fridge online. That's all they said. The bot transcript is here, so that full interaction between the bot and agent. Customer said can't order fridge online. The bot basically says, hey, you know what? Sorry, I can't help you. I'm going to take you to an agent. So it's starting to explain why my automation rate was so low. But here's another one, which I found interesting. So this one says the user wrote, they came into the bot, and this is a longer conversation, but I want to direct you right here. So the customer said, why can't I put in my order? Bot responds with, are you asking about online order support or home services support? And kind of takes you through a journey. And there's a bunch of stuff that happens in here. This one's not so bad, but some of these conversations go long. The customer's trying, they're attempting to use the bot, but they're not getting success. They might go over to an agent, and you want a quick way of just figuring out what's going on. I've got a summary. So the summary is a lot easier. It's kind of boiled down what's going on. So in this case, the customer was having trouble putting in their order and asked for assistance. The bot gave them some troubleshooting and then offered to connect to an associate if they can't help. But think about the two examples here. So the same topic of an online order issue, one says the user can't order a fridge online, and the other one says can't put in my order. So similar, but if we think about this, this should be the same handling, right? And it looks like the bot can probably handle something like this, but for whatever reason, a bunch of these are just getting handed off to an agent. And you can kind of see it here. This is another example that I clicked on. The bot says, and I'm going to get a summary to show you quickly, customer provided about a special order. They want to know how to do it, and the bot said, go to an agent. So it's understanding a little bit of it, and then it's just taking to an agent. So this is an intent we probably want to create. We probably want to add a bit of handling for when a user is having troubleshooting issues, and they're getting inconsistent experiences because the bot's not able to reliably distinguish between place an order and actually an order issue. So that's another way of using it. I kind of show you 2-in-1 again, but getting that topic level, I'll back out to show you how I kind of got here. Finding the topics with low underperforming metrics, either on experience or automation, clicking through, figure out what's going on, And in here, we were able to determine why the automation was so low is it's kind of mishandling them. Too many are getting automatically routed because what the bot is saying is I can help you place an online order. But what it should say, like it does sometimes, is, hey, I can help you. Let's try some troubleshooting. Let's do X, Y, Z. You know, whatever the right steps are to help resolve this. And that would be your new handling. Okay. So those are it in terms of how to get to the different examples, different ways of getting to intents. I'm going to show you one more, which is an interesting kind of way that you might not think about originally when you're designing bots. And it's for the same topics, for the same topic of place online order issue. This is my list here of entities. So these entities might automatically be detected, or they might be configured. So if you're, like I see some of you from sort of the telco space, you might be interested in devices or products. You might be interested in, lines of business or services, whether you have sort of a wireline cable service or you have a wireless service. You might be interested in pulling out some of these entities and reporting on them. In this case, in this retail example, the entities are essentially product categories, and in some cases, brands. And so let's say you have an intent for this of online order issue, and they all get handled the same way. Someone says, I'm on your website, I added something to my cart, I can't seem to check out, there's something wrong. But I want to go deeper. Like I've got that experience already built out. I've given them a couple of troubleshooting steps, but I want to separate that intent. I want slightly different handling if they're talking about a certain product, let's say in this case appliances, versus something that's a certain brands, or maybe out, seasonal items like outdoor items to be handled differently than when someone's trying to check out with an appliance, because for whatever reason the order processing is different. Using this, I can actually start segmenting it. So I'm looking at my volume, and amongst my top 5, you can see the majority of them are appliances. So I've got fridge at 930, washer at 500, dryer at 469. And now I've got sort of putting together the evidence to say, let's put some of these into an intent that would handle, or use the entities in your bot platform to say, handle this a certain way and handle the other certain way, because I've got different ways my business might want to accommodate problems. So I've got another intent, and I've got more finer and finer ways of handling my customer inquiries, which is why where the way if you sort of take it away, I know a lot of you are sort of at the 12-month mark in terms of running a bot. The first 12 months, great, you get a lot of ROI, you start using your analytics to improve your bot performance. Then you start flatlining, you start plateauing in terms of how much you can continue to squeeze out in terms of automation. And this is my kind of tip at how to do that. You may have thought you covered all your intents, use unclassified messages to figure it out, use the automation rates to maybe figure it out, but then also use entities, because this gives you, especially if you take it back to your business, to say, hey, appliances and checkouts and appliances seem to be a problem area. Do we want to do these differently? Maybe they're considered high value and we'll handle those to an agent, and the rest of them I'll create an intent and a flow for my bot to handle. This is where you start getting down into, okay, we've moved our automation from 30 to 31, 32, because you've already taken it from say 5 to 30 over the last few months. You start getting those incremental improvements, and as you start compiling them over, you start kind of adding more and more, you start really getting that ROI, because at some point you will certainly plateau. Okay, that's it for the tool. I did see a question before. If there's any others, I'm going to stay here for a second before I pop back over to the slides. If there's anything anyone wants to see, I only covered 2 screens, and you can see there's several more. Happy to show you more, but otherwise, I'm going to pop back over to the slides if there aren't any questions, and we'll wrap up. Okay. I'll pull up the slide where we landed. One moment here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to recap real quick. We talked about this to set up, and I'll summarize. As you run your bot program, you'll find, especially right after launch, you've got a ton of data. You're likely doing it manually. Certainly I did when I first started. Spreadsheet, SQL, analytics teams running reports for you. What we covered was ways to do that faster and easier. You're likely constrained for resources. What we want to do is make that easier and start getting the ROI for your bot program. So we're using topic models to review those messages. So the tens of thousands of unclassified messages you may be receiving every day, every week, every month, OC will mine them and say, here are your topics and where you should be focusing your time. Number two is using the transcript summary. So we use large language models here. So you got to a point where you've added some of those intents from unclassified messages. Now you're looking at your topics and saying, where are they underperforming? And you've got transcripts to help you figure out where there's differences in experience. I use that example for place online order issue, where one set of users got routed and another set of users, the bot was trying to help them. So we clearly needed either another intent or some better training. And the transcript summary is a quick way for me to figure out what's going on. And then finally, number three, we use that, I kind of merged the two examples, but it's essentially using that summary data to figure out where you need to focus. So on one hand, you're looking at verbatim user messages, and on the far end, you're sort of saying, okay, now that I've kind of addressed those, how do I look at it by topic, and where do I see underperformance relative to my bot overall? I'm seeing if there's a place there I need to improve my intents or add new intents. Okay, I see questions come in. Really appreciate it, David. I don't know if you want to, or I don't know if Heather's coming on.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, there's a couple that have been in here. They're fairly general. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the languages we support.
Yeah. We right out of the box, it's English, French, and Spanish. Native, no problem. We're also adding language support for the 20 or so sort of major European languages. Shortly, that's all about to be released. But today, if you sort of got going tomorrow, English, French, and Spanish for sure.
There's another question on sort of what platforms we support, and really we talked a little bit about this at the beginning. We'll integrate with any platform, but we've done the integration or in the process of integration with people like Amelia, Amazon, Microsoft BotPress, Microsoft and BotPress, Google Dialogflow, Salesforce Einstein, Genesis, LivePerson, Five9, Raza. I might be missing a few, Jay, but essentially it is. We can integrate with anybody. Is that? I'll let you expand on that if you want.
Yeah, that's really it. What we need, getting a little bit technical, but what you essentially need, irrespective of the platforms coming out of it, and you may have multiple platforms. Some of our customers will say, my HR one is based on ServiceNow, or my IT one is based on ServiceNow, my customer one is IBM Watson, and I've got another one for a smaller segment that's Raza. No problem, we'll take all three. We need the conversation data, and we need that sort of bot metadata, so that the actual organization of intents and utterances.
Cool. And then there's one final question here, Jay, a more general one. Like, are you using large language models? And maybe explain that a little bit would be great.
Yeah, happy to. So large language models within Operations Center, bullet 2 here is what I've got on the screen. So that summarization I showed you is one place that we use it to summarize sometimes enormous conversations into a couple points where you can sort of get a better idea of what's going on. We also use large language models in some of the metrics we're calculating. So I talked about the automation score and the experience score, where we want to assess, without the use of surveys, how well did that conversation go with the bot. And we're looking for things like sentiment and tone and whether the user repeated itself or themselves. That's where we'll incorporate some of those large language models to better assess how that conversation went and whether or not it was resolved.
Perfect, good stuff. So if anybody has any last questions, you can put them in the question box. Otherwise, Jay, I think if you just want to go to our quick wrap-up slide, we can give everybody sort of a how they could contact us. So we hope you've enjoyed
sorry,
the
David,
webinar.
one just popped up around COM 100. Okay, yeah, sorry. The same thing. As long as we haven't done a COM 100 yet. There's not too many that we're seeing. But same thing. If we have the conversation data and some of that intent, utterance, response information, it doesn't matter. Honestly, it's the conversations, that dialogue that's key.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, another one. Great, love the questions. Keep them coming. So where are we based? We're in Canada. We have customers in the European Union. We have customers in the United States and in Canada first. If you're Canada or you're in the US, we'll host your data in a cloud server in Canada. In Europe, we'll do the same in Europe, but given sort of the GDPR. So we'll host it there. We also receive some requests for private cloud where they don't want them on a public. And as long as you've got sort of the MongoDB and some of the components we need, we'll also deploy on your own private cloud on any of the sort of the major cloud platforms. It's all Dockerized. We just make sure all the components are available in your environment. I think that's it in terms of questions, unless there's a last second one here.
Let's give it 30 seconds or so here, Jay. I think we're good for questions. Yep. Perfect.
Okay.
Just want to just quickly pop to the wrap-up slide. So thanks for the Q&A. Quite often people, we will be sending out a recorded version of this so you can review. You'll likely, if you come up with some questions, feel free to connect with us. We do have another webinar on the 25th of May coming up as well, and so you'll see that. The best way to get information about Wysdom is to follow us on LinkedIn. We have a large community on LinkedIn where we can get you lots of information, not just about us and our product, but about things we see in the industry and events that you might want to be part of. So please follow us on LinkedIn. That's a great way to get information about us and the industry. But contact us directly if you'd like a deeper dive with Jay on the demo and how that might really affect some real examples for your business. We're more than glad to do that. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their time, and we hope you have a very pleasant rest of your day. Thanks very much.